Josie. Thank you. Thanks everyone, and welcome to the Strategic Asset and Planning meeting for the 13th of May 2025. Everybody's present. There is no apologies, no one on leave, and no media. We'll just read the live streaming policy. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. So item 1, any members' declaration of interest? No. Number 2, there is no public forum. And item 3 is the confirmation of minutes from the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee meeting held on the 11th of March. Can I have a mover, Councillor Dennis, and a seconder? Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? That's carried. Item 4, matters laid on the table. There is none. So we'll go straight into reports for decisions. Item 5.1, the driveway entrance for Yakka Park, Lucendale, and I will hand over to Mr. Willsmore.
Thank you. As per the report, we've been working with the Lucendale Lions Club regarding the relocation of the entrance driveway into Yakka Park. The confirmed request is now for council to supply rubble machinery, culverts and other materials, and then Lions volunteers will carry out the works. Some of their volunteers will be council employees who have already undertaken training and induction into our plant use. We've costed these works, including the supply of materials, about $45,000, and then there's a mark up there based on site discussions held in 2023. They've also made an additional request to remove further burnt tree stumps from between the entrance and the beginning of the airstrip. I touched base with the manager of Native Veg, and she's provided approval to remove those stumps if council wish, provided there's no evidence of regrowth, similar to the approach we undertook with the first clearance we undertook. Happy for questions.
Any questions, Mayor Ross?
Mr. Willsmore, I note the use of culverts there. Is that actually a drainage alignment, or there just happens to be a ditch there? I note pretty much from, is that Centenary Avenue? Like, is there much before that? Is that actually a drainage line?
Yeah, it's a drain that takes a lot of the town, so some of the drain that runs through the common runs in there, a lot of Musgrave Avenue runs through there, so the existing driveway's got culverts in, so certainly culverts are required to go in with a new driveway.
Councillor McGuire?
Through the Chair to Mrs Edmonds, where does this fit into the budget process? Is it, where would that 45,000 come from?
I guess at this stage, depending on where you want the budget to sit at the end of the day, it gets incorporated into capital works, of course. So currently we're looking at the operational deficit. The cash at the end of the financial year that we're forecasting is still relatively healthy, so it really would depend on whether you're prepared to commit extra spend to capital works. From an operational perspective, I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's not ideal to go further into deficit, but from a capital perspective.
If I just add to that, I don't have an issue with the motion. I guess probably my question would be if we've set the precedent, for example, with Francis, and just the timing of our budget, is this something that we should be putting into next year's budget, or is elected members happy to take it out of our cash reserve? Because we sort of can't change the goalposts. We can, but it's just my thoughts.
I'll just add to that, we have received this request in November last year, there was discussion between myself and the current president about formal submission of the request for funding. There was a miscommunication there about if it had to go back through the Lions Committee or if their email, which is attached, is the formal submission. So that's why the Lions probably didn't make it in February, because they were under their belief that it had been submitted in November.
Councillor Dennis?
No.
sorry. Can I just ask, obviously on that image there, it says existing entry road, way to be removed and returned to grass, but from what's written in the report, it says they'd like it to be.
Yeah, so a
retained.
slight change is they
Yeah.
want to retain that. They think that would assist with the flow of vehicles into the car park near the airstrip.
Is there any other questions, comments regarding this item? If not, Councillor Goodman? Yep.
More of a comment. I'm struggling with the decision personally on this one because I think it's a good proposal and it supports the activity at Yakka Park, and as they've outlined, it's also about providing access for emergency services and to the airstrip and that kind of thing. So I think it is something that needs to be done. I do take Councillor Maguire's point though about our budget position and the difficult decisions that we have coming up, and I'm not sure about anybody else, but off the back of the newspaper article, ring a councillor about your thoughts on the budget, I have received some feedback, and it is, no frills budget is what people are after, and so committing to further deficit is problematic. I'm not sure if there's any other guidance that can be provided or perspective in ways of thinking about how to approach this, because I see the merit, but I also, and $45,000 isn't a lot until it's on your rates notice.
That's capital though. Are you focusing on operational or you're focusing on capital? Because you're focusing on your comments there as operational, as in you're worried about it. But this, as we were saying, it's capital. So
Just to give more perspective, the forecasted balance or the forecasted reduction in cash for next year is a $2 million drop. So if we start at 8.3 in cash reserves, with what we've already forecasted in our current budget proceedings, we're looking at a closing balance of 6.3. Now, at the upcoming meeting, I'll be presenting the last budget review, and we're just about on point with that opening cash balance for our budget. So the reality is we've already committed to an extra $2 million spend towards, a reduction of $2 million in our current spend of capital works in terms of that cash balance. So I guess at the end of the day, it's already a 25% drop in cash holdings just through the current idea of spend.
Just one question. Where do we sit with DIT with an access onto the main road?
So we need to go through with them and clarify their requirements. I wouldn't have thought they would have had an issue when we were removing the driveway. Now, Lions want to keep the existing driveway. They may have some concerns with that.
Meros?
So I think the council would generally be in principle in agreement, but there's quite a lot of work to be done, Mr Willsmore, in regard to questions around native vegetation and further discussion with DIT. And even if we were to go with this recommendation, I think there is, as Councillor Maguire suggested, it might be something we might like to defer until next year's budget.
So just to clarify, Native Veg have approved the removal of those stumps, so it would just be DIT we need to liaise with.
Oh, native veg is done?
They've come back.
Okay.
Cool.
Councillor Turner?
And was there any offset, Mr Willsmore?
No, they do not believe the stumps come under native vegetation requirements, which I wasn't expecting that response.
Councillor Turner?
I'm supportive of the motion. I'd be happy to move it as read, and at a point when you want to accept that, and then make a comment on why.
Councillor Grunge, you have something?
Look, $45,000, it's not a sheep station. Given that the Lions are looking to participate in such a meaningful way, I think it's an opportunity. I agree with the sentiment. Of course, we have to be frugal. But while the Lions are looking to participate in a meaningful way, I think we grasp the nettle.
Councillor Goodwin?
Two further questions, if that's all right. One is, do we have an estimation of what their in-kind work is valued at? And my second question is, from reading their correspondence, it seems like they're asking if they can then mow that offset area where the stumps are removed. Would that be allowed under the native veg regulations to mow an offset area?
Yes. That was previous discussions with them when we undertook the first clearance that they'd maintain it. That was also discussed with Native Veg at the time when we were seeking approval to remove those trees, so they didn't raise any concerns with the maintenance of it. The reason we approached Native Veg was we had a number of community requests about creating a buffer zone for Lucindale, so to mow that area and keep it flat and not have any further growth there. So yeah, they've acknowledged Lions have agreed to those conditions.
That one area is an offset and one area is not.
They're both an offset based on native veg, based on the history that we could find when we went through that clearance. And then in terms of the cost, yeah, I wouldn't give you a cost at this stage, but yeah, they're allowed to cart the rubble, so it depends on which pit we come from, and then installing the culverts and the road. There's about 4 or 5 days work there, so it's not a small amount of in-kind support the Lions are offering to provide.
Anything else? If not, I have a mover as Councillor Turner. Did you want to speak?
I've got something along the lines of Councillor Grundy, but I think the 45,000 is not an actual dollars cost. It's actually some of the work that we'll be doing with our team. It's just utilisation of team. And to kick it down the road is really more of a cash flow issue rather than a cost issue. And I think whilst this project has progressed right to the point where it's began a long time ago, it's got accurate costing, the Lions have got a lot of in-kind work to deal with. I don't think I know we can benchmark this with Francis, but I don't think it's the same on many principles. So I think it feels like there's an agreement that we should do this project. It is $45, and the discussion's really whether we just got a warm feeling by pushing it out to next year's budget rather than this year's budget. So I think it sounds to me like it's ready to go and be put into this year's budget. I'd like to move and support the motion as read.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Downwood? All right, so the recommendation is the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee recommends to Council to support the request to provide assistance to Yakka Park driveway relocation. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Move on to item 5.2, the additional taxiway request for the Lucindale airstrip. Mr. Wilmore?
Thank you. We received a late budget request from the Lucindale CFS group for some additional verge works to extend the works we recently undertook. As members are aware, there's no CASA guidelines on the layout of an unlicensed facility. However, LGA's aero design consultant who undertakes our annual aerodrome inspections, it's their view that in order to reduce council's risk, all new installations at a ALA, which is Lucindale Airstrip, should meet the minimum CASA standards as applied to a certified aerodrome. With the works we recently undertook, previously we had to relocate the gable markers, which we needed to do to avoid some takeoff angle conflicts with the installed CFS fixed infrastructure, but that also then allowed the previous works to be within the taxi area and not the runway area. So based on the risk, we are suggesting that these works are not supported.
Okay. Mayor Ross.
Thank you, Mr Willsmore, for the extensive work you've done there. Quite impressive. Over the last 10 days, I've spoken with the Lucindale group, and I also spoke with air operations guys, Corey Dunn, and towards the end of this week, I believe they'll be having a seasonal debrief with Aerotech. As you would know, or as actually maybe the members don't know, but all activities which occur, especially around CFS activities at the Lucendale Strip, are controlled by the pilots themselves. So all of the aerial stuff around the airstrip and also all of the taxiing and manoeuvres that happen at the airstrip are controlled by the pilots themselves. So it's a self-controlled environment. No one else has any control. I think that we just sit on this recommendation for the time being until we actually have a report back from Air Ops at CFS. In speaking with Corey Dunn, and I've asked Mr Dunn to report back to you, Mr Willsmore. From speaking with Mr Dunn, he suggested that at no time over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years has there been any concern shown by the pilots whilst doing air ops. And for example, most recently, the Foxfire, they had 7 aircraft operating there doing turnarounds in sort of 5 minutes. So there's a lot of activity. So I think it'd be best just to leave this one sit for the time being, get a report back from the CFS to get their understanding, and if there needs to be something done, perhaps develop a plan around the future development of the Lucendale airstrip over time.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Is there any other questions or comments regarding this item?
Just
Councillor Downwood?
from Mayor Ross's comments, given that the pilots are the ones that are in control of the whole thing, would it be worthwhile talking to the pilots themselves?
So in fact, no, that's not what we do. So Mr Willsmore would understand that Corey Dunn will be doing that, and the CFS, and he will be talking with Aerotech and the pilots and the chief pilot. And there are strips in South Australia where there are issues for aerial firefighting. Lucendale is not one of them. And so I think Mr Willsmore will receive a report sometime, I would suggest, in the next month. And, you know, I think that'll be a valuable addition to an understanding around the Lucendale airstrip.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go to the recommendation that the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee recommends to Council not to support further verge extension to the southern side of the Lucendale airstrip. Can I have a mover?
I thought we just let
Are we going
that.
to, sorry, we're going to, is that what I'm up to?
Could I suggest that potentially it gets deferred for consideration of the next SAPC meeting? Is that how you would like the recommendation to read?
So, I mean, my preference would be that the recommendation, well, in fact, you can put up the recommendation if you like, but I think we should wait for further information from the CFS around operations.
Change the recommendation to, how have you
The
written?
next meeting. Okay.
Yeah, don't put it against license, it's gone then.
No, just let it lapse. Could you let it lapse?
I think if you make a new resolution, then at least keeps it on the
How do we want to work to?
sorry, not hence, defer consideration of the report until the next Strategic Asset and Planning Committee meeting.
And I'm happy to move.
Further decision, how do we word it?
Consideration of the report.
Defer the consideration of the report.
Yep. And not recommends to council. It's just that the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee defers consideration of the report
Yeah, that recommends to council.
until the next.
Yeah, recommends to council.
Just defers the consideration of the report until the next Strategic Asset and Planning Committee meeting.
Councillor Crosing, did Mayor Ross want to add anything about the CFS report in that, or are you happy with that?
So there would be an expectation that we have a report back, and I'm sure Mr Willsmore, you know, you could follow up with Corey Dunn, you know, in a couple of weeks, I reckon.
Okay, so the recommendation that Strategic Asset Planning Committee defer the consideration of the report until the next SAP meeting. Just want to leave it at that, don't we? Full stop, yeah, and then we'll take out the rest. That's all.
Question, are you likely to get that report before the next SAP meeting? Because you couldn't go straight to council rather than coming back through the SAP. Like if you're going to get it in the next month, you may be able to action the report this item quicker.
I don't think it's urgent.
No, okay, that's cool. That's fine. That's
Hopefully we're coming into winter.
SAP meeting gives us more opportunity to discuss it if need be. Okay. So the recommendation is as written. Do I have a mover? Mayor Ross? And a seconder? Councillor Turner? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. And we will move on to item 5.3, the Struan House Road Bridge. Mr Willismore.
Thank you. Some members will recall having a look at this bridge on a couple of different bus trips we've undertaken. So this bridge was first constructed in 1865 and then part of it was upgraded in 1939. So we've had a couple of reports on this bridge now saying the stone abutments and wing walls are in a poor condition and due for replacement in 2 to 3 years. The bridge is still being assessed to be capable of supporting a 9-axle B double. The expected cost for these works $1 million to replace the wing walls and stone abutments. We discussed informally on the bus trip about different options we could undertake with this bridge due to the locality of the new highway bridge, approximately 200 metres downstream. So presented a couple of options. Option one being the endorsed roads and stormwater infrastructure long-term financial plan is showing the design works to be undertaken in 28-29 and construction works to be carried out in 29-30. These activities can be brought forward for the design in 26-27 and the construction in 27-28. Or option two would be consultation with DIT if there are any alterations are required to the southern access, and then community consultation could be undertaken on the removal of this bridge and closure of part of Struan House Bridge Road. Again, as shown on the bus trip. The Riddock Highway is 225 metres downstream. Struan House Road has dual access to the highway, closure of the northern access of Struan House Road. At the bridge would result in a 2.1 kilometre detour for vehicles wishing to access Struan Jono Road coming from Narrowful. The latest traffic count data were provided in the report, but based on the expected cost and proximity of the adjacent bridge, it's recommended that this bridge is not replaced. And option two, consultation is undertaken with surrounding community members and the Department of Infrastructure and Transport.
Mayor Ross.
Mr Wilsmore, we must have inherited this bridge.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, it used to be a main road,
Yes.
highway bridge, correct. Yep.
So we inherited it or we accepted the bridge.
I'm not sure back in the day how much acceptance council had, but yeah, we are looking after it. Yes, we own it. Which has
Councillor
helped us in this situation because the Department of Infrastructure and Transport had significant record keeping of this bridge, as we know the age and the construction of it.
Councillor Maguire.
I'm happy to move the motion and speak to it if I can. Is that okay?
We just go, if there's a few other comments, and I'll come back to you. Councillor Ross? Yep.
So, in regards to saying it's rated to have B doubles on there, if they were to remove the the rating of B doubles just to not take trucks off that bridge. Will it, obviously will it last longer?
It would last longer and have a less of a load, but there is movement in the bridge, so I don't think that's a long-term solution.
Councillor Turner?
If we were to go with this recommendation, what happens to the bridge? Does it get closed off, knocked down? Is it local traffic and you walk across it? What happens to the...
That could come back and be part of the consultation, so we would, my recommendation, if you ask me, is we'd knock it down, so it's already moving, so we probably don't want to encourage people to use it. Options of a walking bridge, that's something we could look at, but you need to have physical barriers so to keep vehicles off of it. That could be part of the consultation we undertake.
Ross, did you have something?
The Maricourt Creek, the Mosquito Creek rather, supplies a lot of water into Bull Lagoon and flows intermittently, but when it's in flood it's quite a raging torrent. If the bridge was removed and a ford put in, that would be an all-weather, proper ford, have you got any estimate what that might look like? Obviously, at certain times of the year.
So that'd be significant. Be significant amount of work.
So it'd be a significant dip, which might make it difficult for...
I suggest your $1 million wouldn't, as an equivalent for the bridge, would
Yep.
probably be similar.
Yep. Thank you, Mr Wilsmore. Your tractor.
Was there any other questions? Councillor Dowling?
What Councillor Ross is saying, if we excluded vehicles over a certain weight, allowed cars, does that absolve us from any insurance issues? So if anybody was to have to drive across it in a truck and it collapsed on them, then it's their fault.
No, it'd be nice if it was that simple, but no, that we would still be in the asset owner where liability.
Yeah, I was just sort of thinking there's
If I might just...
about 3 houses down that road that would be using it.
Yep.
And Struan itself, but they're out the other side, so it's not a major impact. So for $1 million, I think, support the motion.
Mayor Ross?
If we can just add a bit of context around bridges, the Drainage Board own a lot of them. And just recently, we closed a bridge just downstream of Lake Horden North on the Drainell. When it was due for a little bit of tender loving care. And when they got up there, we had to close it straight away, and that was having B doubles over it the day before. There are bridges across the southeast which are owned and managed by the Drainage Board, which are weight limited and are certainly a liability constantly.
Anyone else? I'll come back to Councillor Maguire, and you'd like to move?
And speak to it.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm only speaking, moving the motion on what's written there, which is to go to consultation on it. Personally, I'd probably like to see a few more options investigated. I think the bridge does have merit in investing $1 million into it. I know probably 10 years ago, was it, Trevor, we did Concrete Bridge Road? Was it 10 years ago? Maybe more?
Be going that way, yeah.
And 13, sorry. Yep, but there was grant funding available for that bridge, if I remember correctly. Struan House is falling to pieces. There needs to be a lot of money spent on that. What I'm probably trying to come to is it is a significant heritage building. There is a lot of local traffic that uses the Struan Joanna Road. My only other argument as well is if you came out onto the highway, the DIT would have to invest in a slip lane. We know they're not cheap either, so all of a sudden, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for a slip lane to actually turn off into that section. So I think there is merit in investing money into that bridge and rebuilding that bridge. Obviously, if there's grant funding available, and we could use Struan House as a bit of a lure for that area. But hopefully if we go to consultation, a lot of the local farmers that do rely on that bridge will give us some good feedback. So I'm not supporting the motion to remove the bridge, I'm supporting the motion to go to consultation.
Can I have a seconder for the motion as written? Councillor Dennis, we a seconder? So Councillor Maguire and then Councillor Dennis. Councillor Turner?
Given what Councillor Maguire has said, I mean, that motion, if we go to consultation, that we propose to close the Struan House Bridge, so that's what the consultation is, it's about the closure of it.
Proposed.
Proposed closure of it, yeah, if you're happy with that, would you?
So we'll get the feedback from those we consult with. Okay, so the motion is as written that the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee recommends to Council to undertake consultation on the proposed closure of the Struan House Road Bridge, and a report is brought back to Council. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Item 5.4, roads. So we have Mundalena, Shuards Lane and the 4th grade. So who's taking the lead on that one?
We're going to tag team on this
Tag
one.
team.
Thank you very much. I'll start off because one of my roles as CEO is to enact the lawful resolutions of council in a timely way. So I'm aware there's a couple of resolutions sitting on the books around some of these roads and we need to move forward with them. I'll just go through the different subjects individually if that's okay, and Daniel, feel free to jump in at any time. With Mundalena Road, there was discussion around this at the budget workshop, and we have removed it from the draft budget because of the price tag. So $1.3 million for a road of this nature, I think everyone would agree, is over the top. So what we would like to have a bit more opportunity to investigate what is actually needed there, and obviously we haven't done that in the time since the workshop. It may be that there's a smaller opportunity in Mundalena Road, or it may be there's no opportunity. So what we're hoping is that because there is a resolution on the books, this committee will recommend to council that that resolution gets changed and we do kick it down the road for a year and give us time to do some proper analysis. Thank you for the background on that one too, Daniel. In terms of Shuards Lane, so there was a question during the budget process about why this wasn't included in the budget, and I did see a comment in the news about that as well. The resolution of council is around the reinstatement of a section of road. So it's not a resolution that requires budget. It's actually just something that would happen. And generally something like that would happen as part of a big discussion around hierarchies of road, etc. So there is, however, a resolution there. So I wanted to let you know that that resolution will be followed through. One of the other roles of a CEO is to highlight to you some of the risks in making resolutions where potentially there could be some fallback on council. So in relation to changing the hierarchy of a road outside the normal asset management process, you expose yourself to a couple of risks. One is reputational, so you might get claims of bias, that you're doing something for a particular group of people and it's not part of a cohesive plan. So generally an asset planning process is where you would look at the hierarchies as a council, you would work out whether you're comfortable with them, and then they would apply to all roads of that particular nature. The other risk is obviously in setting a precedence. So I am yet to see Shuards Lane. I will get to see Shuards Lane on Friday and have a great discussion with you all. But if you set a precedent about a road that services a minimal number of people and you deal with that outside the hierarchy and the asset management planning process, you do expose yourself to risk. So I wanted to just emphasise that in this report. The 4th grade, and so that one's really just for noting. The 4th grade issue is also for noting. I think you're all aware now that the Wheaton's report does talk about the implementation of the 4th grade as essentially as a cosmetic. It serves no value and might actually deteriorate roads faster, and that was my knowledge from other experience as well. So that 4th grade notion has been taken out of the budget for proposed budget for 25-26. Always could be put back in if you need it. But what we'd like to do is discuss that more at the roads workshop next week and just talk a little bit more, deep dive a little bit more into that particular issue. So really the recommendation is to note that information, but also that the Muntalina Road previous resolution gets dealt with through a revised resolution. Did you want to add anything, Ben?
No, thank you.
Are there any questions, Councillor Grundy?
Look, just for the benefit of the record, for the benefit of this meeting, the fourth grade, which we endorsed by way of recommendation at council, was qualified, and we didn't qualify by way of the motion because you can't qualify something which is subjective, but the administration were given the ability to use their initiative as to whether these fourth grades were warranted in some cases. So it was only ever intended for some roads at the discretion of the administration.
I recall the fourth grade was the 42% increase in our patrol grading, is that correct? Yep.
Yeah, the
And
top two hierarchy roads, yep.
I do recall conversation in the chamber that we should have waited till the Wheaton's report and the Tallis report came back before we actually put that into budget.
I'd like to move the motion as written.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Turner? Any further discussion? If not, the recommendation reads that the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee notes the information provided and recommends to Council that Muntalina Road is not resheeted in the 25-26 financial year, but options be scoped and presented to Council for consideration in the 26-27 budget. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you for all that information. We have item 6, reports for information. There are none. Item 7, questions with notice. There are none. Item 8, motions with notice, and we have a motion with notice 8.1 from Councillor Ireland.
Thank you. I'd like to, the reason I brought this motion to the attention of the meeting is that we have some of these limited access roads that, and asking ratepayers, etc., don't necessarily need to be the criteria for our limited access road. If Mr. Willsmore can correct me, is if I'm wrong, is 6 metres and 100 mil of material, and that's in some of these circumstances actually a bit of an overkill, I think, and it's something that we need to perhaps revisit. And for that reason, I'd very much like a report to let us know some direction for some of these roads in future, if we can have a cost saving to ratepayers on the maintenance and these new roads that are going in.
So are you after a different class, like you said, on a case by case, depending on type and use of amount of usage? Are you after a different category of roads?
Well, within that limited access road, I mean, can we have, there are situations where 6 metres wide is actually a bit of overkill. I mean, can we do this on a case-by-case basis, and can you give us a report on what the difference in costing would be for our council to do so?
Yep.
So that's my request. If I'm happy to read that motion, move that motion if you wish.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yep.
Mayor Ross?
For Mr. Willsmore, around your concern whether we would developing another class of road, would you like to expand on your thoughts there?
Oh, just clarity on if we provide a report, if we're changing all limited access roads, we can do a financial comparison of the complete length of that type, hierarchy type. If it's on a case-by-case basis, we can give an A and B example. It just won't be based on the full network, so we won't be able to provide further details on depreciation costs and how much it would cost to maintain the whole network of that hierarchy. So it would just be a couple of different case studies.
sorry, Mr. Wilmore, if it could be done on a per kilometre basis and then given us an indication of how many kilometres of road that a limited access road network actually is, then it's give us there's some direction perhaps. Are you happy, Chairman Crossley, if I was to move that motion?
The recommendation. I'll move it. Councillor Ireland, do I have a seconder? Councillor Rayner?
Question about the motion. So in regard to this case-by-case component, that's grey in regard to the fact that if we, just through the chair to Councillor Ireland, case-by-case means that every single time we have a treatment on a road of a certain level so that we have discipline around decision-making, as was highlighted by the CEO. But if we say one road, yep, that's 4 metres, one road, yep, that's 6 metres, where the transparency around our discipline in treating roads according to a hierarchy becomes a bit grey. Is that it also almost lends itself to having a road hierarchy that is limited access A and B is a road that only needs to be 4 metres, I suppose, if that makes sense. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yeah, through you, thank you. I think we understand the intent of the motion,
Yes.
so I think we can do a report that addresses some of those concerns and issues. Would you agree? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Dennis, certainly, as Mr Wilsmore just said, I mean, if that report says that we do need another list in our road hierarchy level, and then that's something the report can tell us, I'm sure, if that's needed. But this is just a report, just to let us know whether it is possible.
And so the motion is that the report be provided as to the effects of changing the asset management plan for road dimensions, specifically limited access roads. Is that good? Yep. Okay, and we have a...
Excuse me, but that's a changing of the initial wording.
Sorry, there's end bits on that.
all of that on there?
Yeah.
Putting
It's,
the road be brought back to 4 metres in width. Necessary on a case-by-case basis, depending on the type and amount of usage.
Sorry for the correction, but as written, it would be great, please.
That's been moved to Ireland, seconded Rayner.
Yep. Moved and seconded. Is that the page above? Or yep. So moved Councillor Ireland.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Motion is carried. Okay. So question 9, item 9, questions without notice. Councillor Ireland. Yeah.
If I may put a question to Mr Wilsmore, I had a ratepayer who communicated with me about the fact there's been an overtaking lane being put in on the Reddock Highway, approximating 20 kilometres north of Narracoorte. And I just wondered, were we as a council aware of this from DIT about where this may be? And that's the first part of the question. And the second part is, I mean, if we are aware of it, are we aware of any ramifications this may have on some of our other roads, and especially Dickinson's Road, as that's a quite arterial route and link road through to heading north for heavy vehicles?
Yep, we received some designs prior to the other overtaking lanes going in. We were advised by DIT that they were installing 3 overtaking lanes along the Reddock Highway, and then that one was put on hold. I think they had some issues with trees and the like. We were asked to provide comment on it. We clarified it was Dixon's Road and also Ricketts Lane about the intersections and how that would be treated as part of their design. So that was going to be captured as part of their design works. So they were going to not upgrade the whole of our roads, but they were going to upgrade their intersection treatment there, because there's a couple of Ricketts has got some turn-in restrictions from a heavy vehicle point of view, so that was going to be addressed as part of their design, as far as we're aware.
Okay.
We haven't heard any more about that project for about 3 years, so I'm
That
not sure.
project's been kind of-
Not sure if it's still going ahead. So.
Yeah, I believe it may be, and that's the reason why I asked. And with the traffic coming down Dickinson's Road, and as I said, crossing the highway, if they happen to put their overtaking lanes in there, it could be a real problem for us to have to contend with at a later date.
Yep.
So,
I haven't seen a final design, but yeah, we can follow it up. So.
thank you.
There's a couple of theodolites appeared there today.
Okay, item 10, motions without notice. And item 11, matters to be considered in confidence, there are none. Item 12, the date of our next meeting, which will be the 8th of July 2025 at 6 p.m. Thank you all for attending, and the meeting is closed at 6:47 p.m. Thank you.